Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Open Shutter, another Wednesday evening, and I have the pleasure of welcoming Toronto area photographer Wes Jackson to the program. So a huge thanks to Wes for taking the time and chatting about his photography and journey. We actually met like a few weeks ago at a Fashion Forward event at the Vision Room, and I just thought that I don't know, I just thought that Wes would be really good for the podcast. I think he has a lot of good insights, a lot of good uh, thoughts and observations and approaches. So I'm sure he can help us out with our own kind of creative journey. So huge thanks again for Wes. If this is your first time stumbling upon this show and you don't know exactly what it is, try to do this show as much as I can and bringing on different people that make different things, and we can chat about that kind of stuff, because sometimes you learn something and sometimes it helps. So yeah, follow us on Open Shutter YouTube, on Instagram for all the show details, Spotify, wherever this thing goes. And yeah, Wes, I don't want to take up too much of your time, man. So thanks again for taking the time. And before we go any further, just curious, do you prefer Wes or Wesley?
I go by Wes. Yeah.
Wes is okay. Okay, just curious.
My grandfather was Wesley.
Okay.
Thank you for the introduction and thank you for the
Yeah.
invitation. Funny enough, I actually ran into Brian McGowan on
Yeah.
my way here today.
Oh, did you?
So yeah, one of the organizers of that Fashion Forward event
Yeah.
that you're referring to. So
Yeah.
it's kind of a small world as you get to know people in the creative industry and the creative community here. And I'm from Brampton, which is, yes, Toronto area, but Brampton proud.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, no, it was a pleasure meeting you at the event, and I appreciate you reaching out for this. This is awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure. So I guess first of all, how did you find the event? At the Vision Room, were you happy with the shots and everything, or?
Oh, I am.
Yeah.
So what? Call it space Bay. There was a little bit of chaos, and
Yeah, a little bit. Just a little bit.
and so that was part of the fun for me, though,
Yeah.
because I'm, like I say, it was a new type of event for me, and I did not know what to expect. So frankly, had I been there and literally everyone knew what they were doing, exactly when, exactly how, and I was the one person fumbling, I would have
Yeah.
felt like a complete idiot. But there were at least 2 or 3 people who were equally fumbling, so it really put
Yeah.
me at ease, that I wasn't an outcast who didn't belong. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
and you know what? Honestly, my favorite thing when I'm talking to people, whether it's clients in my day job or just people out in the community that I meet, I like to get past those barriers. And
Yeah.
sometimes chaos is that icebreaker that you need.
Right.
You know?
Right. Because we all kind of share the same kind of experience.
Exactly. And so
Right.
if somebody is being overly formal because they feel they need to act a certain level of formality, sometimes it's tough to get through those barriers. And so
Yeah.
when it is casual and it is a little bit unstructured, you can get people laughing, you can get people
Yeah.
talking. And part of what I like about photography is capturing the essence of people and of things. And
Yeah.
so when you get past artificial barriers, that's what you're getting to. So
Yeah.
to me, it played to my personal likes and my personal strengths. I could
Yeah.
see someone who's a very A-type personality may have been aggravated by some of that chaos, but
Right.
hey,
Right.
we each bring our own personality to the
Yeah.
table. So
Yeah. Yeah. Because I guess I mean it's just human nature that we kind of just have our guards up sometimes,
mhm.
and having that kind of like environment where there's just so much going on, and you're kind of I guess it helps people like get their guard down a little bit, just because like there was just so much happening that's, hey, maybe I can just have have a little bit of fun, I guess, instead of just being so formal and so like on point all the time.
Yeah. Now the con, of course, is there were a few models that I didn't get a chance to work with, and I
Yeah.
reached out to some of them on Instagram to say, sorry,
Really.
I missed you. I was making my best effort, and there were
Yeah.
a few
Yeah.
photographers there that I kind of wanted to tap on the shoulder and tell
Hmm.
them, I've been checking out your Instagram. I really like this. I really like that. I had some questions for
Hmm.
some of them. Didn't get a chance to ask them, but you know what? There'll be other opportunities, and so
Yeah.
I'm just looking forward to that. So.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean that's the great thing about doing meetups, is just being able to like connect with people in real life in real time.
And that's how
Right.
I got to know Brian, who was sort
Yeah.
of my introduction to that meetup world, was
Yeah.
through a mutual friend by the name of Mike. And Mike is like,
Yeah.
"Oh, you got to meet my friend Brian. He does these meetups. They're always meeting in downtown Brampton. They're always doing this. They're
Yeah.
always doing that." And I
Yeah.
took him up on that invitation. He introduced us, and now it's opened up these opportunities.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
yeah, you got to be
Exactly.
open to it sometimes and
You
go with
never
the
know where it's
flow.
gonna
And
go. And like my thing
exactly.
is like you never know where it's gonna go. Like you never know who you're gonna meet. You never know what's gonna happen. Like it could be the most simplest thing. And sometimes it doesn't happen right away. Sometimes it doesn't happen that day. Something might happen like weeks from that event, where you might get a message from someone, right? Like you just never know.
Yep, exactly.
So
And for instance, you and I, um, we only got to exchange a few words here and there,
yeah,
but it led me to checking out your channel and
yeah,
checking you out on Spotify. And
yeah.
now, because I have an office up in Orangeville, so now you're in my Orangeville commute rotation. So I'll be
Oh my
checking
God,
out
I'm
some
in
of
a
your episodes
rotation. Oh
in
my
more
God,
detail.
I'm in a rotation. That is like next
Yeah,
level for me. My God, okay, that's cool. That's what I mean. Like you just never know. Like that's just the power of the internet. Is like you never know who's listening, you never know who's watching, you never know who's scrolling. You just I don't know. You just to me, it's like you just gotta keep putting yourself out there. And I think meetups is a great way to put yourself out there, right? So it's pretty
100%
big.
agree.
It's pretty big. So I mean, just curious, like how did you get into photography in the first place? Have you always been like a
So yeah,
photographer or just yeah.
so my first introduction was grade 11. It was actually a journalism class in high school,
Mm,
local high school here in Brampton, Turner Fenton, and
yeah,
we had the old film cameras, obviously, and
yeah,
so part of the journalism course was learning to use the camera, learning to use the darkroom. University days, I had a Fujifilm 1 megabyte digital camera, and I would
okay.
go all around the town with that thing, and I still have some of those photos.
It's
Um,
cool, eh?
you can't blow them up. They're only 1 megabyte, but it is
Yeah,
what it is. And it's great. So I have all these great photos from London that I still look at from time to time, even though they
yeah,
are these like little, by today's standards, they might as well be an 8-bit image for how rough they are.
sure,
But
sure.
then, as in my professional career, I was able to, because I'm a lawyer by day. So at
Yeah,
a certain point, I started off doing criminal law and litigation. So that
yeah.
was all the excuse I needed to go buy a camera because I could write it off. Like, oh yeah, I gotta
Right,
take photos of my clients. If there's a slip and fall, I gotta be able to go take photos, right?
yeah,
Write it off. So
natural. Of
I
course,
picked up, a Canon Rebel from Costco, and just I tripped around
love
with
it.
the kit lens for a few years until I got into when mirrorless first came out. I picked up an Olympus mirrorless,
Yeah,
and that's
yeah,
the camera that I shoot with today when I'm shooting color.
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
then just last year, I picked up a dedicated black and white sensor camera, which is my
yeah.
sort of my true passion is black and white photography. So
Is it?
this
Okay, okay.
monochrome camera is my go-to, but I do
Yeah,
shoot color as well.
yeah. What do you love about black and white then? What's the allure to it?
It's just the aesthetic that I
Yeah,
really enjoy. So, coming up, I grew up in Heart Lake, and all through Heart Lake
yeah,
is the Etobicoke Creek river system. And we always had
right,
dogs. We'd have these, golden retrievers. We had a king shepherd. So we'd take these nighttime walks. So I'd go, by Loafers Lake. I'd follow the creek, 2-3 kilometers, turn around, come back. And to me, one of the most beautiful aesthetics, especially in the winter, is the yellow street, municipal street lamps
right,
shining through the leaves. Sorry,
right.
a tree with no leaves on it. You see that at
Yeah,
night, so you're just seeing the yellow branches and
yeah,
the
yeah.
intricacies and the details. It's just an aesthetic that I've always just found personally very
Mm,
pleasing.
mm,
And so black and white to me, that's the medium that lets you focus on detail. Because you're getting rid of the distractions. Like I really like macro photography.
mm,
I really love, even when I'm like YouTube tutorials on how to sketch, when you're
yeah,
just sketching the eye and you're zoomed in on the eye, like that to me is just, it gets my creative juices going. So
but
with black and white, you take away all the distractions, you can really focus on detail work. So I really,
yeah.
really like that stuff.
Oh, okay, okay. It's cool. Yeah, because I think black and white has its own vibe, right? There's just a vibe to it, I find. Especially for me, it's like especially when it's like during events or even like things like weddings when it's in black and white. Looks really nice, you know?
Yeah, there's certainly a built-in timelessness feel to a
Yeah,
well
for
done
the
black and white
times.
photography. Now, listen,
Yeah,
I have hundreds of them in my memory cards. Bad
yeah,
black and white is terrible. It's
yeah,
just a gray blotted mess, and it's there's a lot that ends up on the cutting room floor. Don't get me wrong, but when
yeah.
you pull off a nice crisp black and white image, it's just chef's kiss. Uh,
Right.
and you can render it in sepia, you can render it with blue tones
Yeah,
without
yeah.
losing that stuff.
Hmm.
So one of my favorite things with just with my iPhone, and this is a good little homework project for your listeners.
Yeah, yeah.
If
Love
you're
it.
out walking at night, now remember, safe neighborhoods. You're
Sure.
out walking at night and you're on a dark stretch of path. just turn on your iPhone, whatever phone you got, and set it to the black and white setting.
Yeah.
And then as you approach a street light, just watch yourself come into focus in the light and some of the stark shadows and contrasts.
Yeah.
You get some really, really great photos that way.
Yeah.
And it's
Interesting.
super easy to do. And,
Yeah.
like I say, I have dogs to this day, and you're out walking them, you got to entertain yourself. And photography
Sure.
is one of those things. And so, yeah, nighttime black and white photography, especially, great way to pass the time as you're walking the dogs.
Yeah. It gives a reason to leave the house. It gives a reason to walk the dogs more. It gives a reason to, it's a great way to practice, right? To me, it's like, especially when you're starting with photography, like it's really important just to like do it as much as possible and like have like a discipline to it, right? Because it's so easy not to do it,
Oh,
right? So
100%. So I don't know if you ever heard this theory or read about this theory where they talk about, mastery is achieved after, and I forget the number, whether it's 10,000 hours or
10,000 hours,
30,000 hours.
yeah, 10,000.
It's same thing with photography. You take 10,000 photos. Your 10,000th photo is going to be better than the first photo.
Yeah,
It just
of
will
course,
be,
of course it is.
because you develop an instinctive, framing of your shots, an
Yeah,
instinctive sense of, where do I want to focus? Where's my depth of field? I have
right.
so many memory cards full of photos that have no subject. I mean, it's a great scene, but there's no
No,
subject in the photo. So you're looking at it and you're like, yeah, that's great. It's in
yeah,
focus. Good for you. Yeah, but
yeah,
what am I supposed to be looking at?
yeah,
And it took me, I don't know, a good 2-3 years to just remember, when I'm framing up my shots,
yeah,
have a subject of my photo.
yeah,
And there's still stuff on my Instagram I've never taken down that is guilty of that. There's just no subject. It's pretty, it's nice colors, no subject.
yeah. It's definitely a thing that I think just adds to the photo and also gives the photo, perspective, depth, story to it. You know,
Oh, and one of my sins I'm still very, very guilty of on a regular basis is not having a foreground. Because
yeah,
I like the detail stuff, because I like the macro
yeah,
stuff.
yeah,
When I'm not shooting macro, I'll frame something up, and then I'm like, right, I need a foreground. I need just
yeah,
something to anchor the depth of the image.
yeah,
Not just depth of field, which is a focusing issue, but just,
yeah,
the real life three-dimensional space that I'm in.
yeah.
Where am I standing? Where is my subject in real time, real space? And yeah, but I'm better at it today than I was a year ago. Just practice, practice,
That's the
practice.
thing. Like that's why that's people just gotta tell themselves it's like you're gonna be better a year from now, right? And like a year from next year, you're gonna be better too. So you're always constantly like improving. Because I just think they're just I don't know. Like sometimes I find that like there's too much pressure for people trying to get like the hero shots and the banger photos for Instagram. And to me, it's like, well, it could happen, but maybe it won't. But you still need to kind of enjoy the process. Where I think that's where people kind of miss sometimes is like the process. Because I think sometimes we just get very impatient.
Yeah, that's what I use Twitter for, is my B-roll. The
Yeah.
stuff that I'm like, you know what? I'm glad I took the photo. I'm glad I made the attempt. It didn't turn out the way I thought it would
Yeah.
in my mind. I'll throw that on Twitter. I may not put it on
Yeah.
Instagram. Yeah, I'm trying
Yeah.
to make Instagram a little slightly more curated than my Twitter feed.
Sure. Sure. But doesn't just like sending it like posting like your B photos. I think that's especially when you know what you could have improved on, it could help so many other people, right? Because like, hey, look, I could have done this, I could have done that, I could have done this, and people can learn from it and say, okay, I can apply that to my own approach,
Well,
right?
not only
Because
that,
yeah,
not that I'm a social engineer, but there's a lot
yeah,
being written and a lot being talked about when it comes to, especially the youth, and they look at Instagram and they think it's real life because people are
yeah.
only posting their A+
Only
material.
the good stuff.
Yeah, only the good
Yeah.
parts of my life
Only
make it online. And so
yeah,
I've made a conscious decision
yeah,
that, you know what, I'm going to put up the crap. I'm going to put up the B-roll. It's
yeah,
there. You can find
yeah,
it.
yeah,
I got an Apple Pencil for my birthday,
yeah,
and so I'm just learning to sketch using, an app I downloaded, and I don't
yeah,
care if it's good or if it's terrible. It goes up, because you know
yeah,
what? In 5 years, when it's like, hey, remember when you posted this? I can be like, yeah,
yeah,
I do. And now look at what I'm posting today. So make fun of it all you want today. I know it's crap.
yeah,
Or
yeah,
I mean, subjective for, and when I say crap, understand what I mean is, to me, the definition of success is, what did I intend with this photo?
yeah,
So if I'm aiming for XYZ and I get TUV, even if TUV is fantastic, it's not what I actually intended. And
yeah,
therefore, that's a failure to me. So
Yeah.
if I intended a photorealistic sketch and I miss, even if my sketch is, good,
Oh, I think we dropped Wes there for a second. I'm sure he'll be back in a second. We'll be back in 2 minutes. You're on a roll.
sorry about that.
You're on a roll.
I do
Loved
apologize.
it. And
I
I'm
don't know.
like, "Oh, is it my internet or his internet?" I'm not sure yet. I'm like, "Oh, it's his."
Sorry, everyone.
Oh, no worries. We were talking about posting the B-roll and um, making sure that you're posting, like, also, like, your mistakes, right? So I think that's where we kinda, like, left off there.
Oh yeah,
The
yeah.
craft
Listen,
and
I'm
everything,
I'm
right?
not selling my art, so
Yeah.
uh, if when I'm proud of a photo, up it goes. If I'm not proud of a photo, okay,
Yeah.
up it goes. And
Yeah.
I don't know where exactly you lost me. I was talking about my definition of success when it
Definitely
comes to
success,
sketching or a photo.
yeah.
It's really versus what I intended, and sometimes I nail it, sometimes I capture it on my
Yeah.
Instagram. And whenever people are like, I want to show my favorite photos, other than the photos of my kids, obviously they
Yeah.
jump to the top. I've
Yeah.
got these great photos. So near my house, along the Etobicoke Creek, where it goes underneath
Yeah.
some of the roads, there are colonies of spiders, and we're talking thousands of spiders, and they make some of the most intricate web designs.
Mm.
And right,
Cool.
the street lights that are underneath the road. A lot of the times, the
Yeah.
spiders are crawling across those. Now, it is insanely difficult to shoot your camera into one of those lights.
Yeah.
And so I might take 30 photos to get one spider actually showing up that's not completely
Yeah.
overexposed. But when I get those photos, they just look fantastic, and they're they're,
Mm.
they're super creepy, super moody.
Yeah.
And but it's trial and error. And every year I go, and this particular year they haven't set up any interesting webs yet, so I got to give it another couple months. But
Yeah.
around late August, early September, when the webs are really intricate, and there's a couple corpses in there. And
Sure.
like I say, you get these just like thousands of spiders. Now, if I say to my wife, yeah, come with me and hold the reflector or hold the spotlight
Yeah.
as I take photos of thousands of spiders, there's
Jeez.
not a chance in the world
You
she
won't
is
do it?
coming with me. She
No.
no, she will not, absolutely. But you know what? And a lot of people are afraid of spiders. So maybe that's not your thing. Maybe you think those are the dumbest photos on the planet. But I'm
Yeah.
capturing exactly what I intend to capture.
Yeah.
So that to me, successful photo.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of power to that because A, you're documenting your own growth, as a creative, as a photographer. And also B, the fact that you're sharing it also just like I said earlier, just helps other people with their own approach because we're kind of all in this together and we all start from zero and we just kind of grow as we grow. But I think there's a lot of power to that. There's a lot of power, there's a lot of confidence in terms of posting like your B stuff instead of your A stuff because not everyone does that, right? So
Yeah. And listen, when I was first introduced to the concept of intentional camera movement photography,
yeah, yeah,
I was just absolutely beside myself. Like, what are you talking about? That's insane.
yeah,
It's just blurry messes.
yeah,
But when you actually look into it, I mean, and you realize that a lot of it is, this is a photographer's equivalent of abstract painting.
hmm,
And you really look through some of the galleries of ICM photography. There's some really beautiful, beautiful stuff out there.
yeah,
But again, I never would have come across any of it if
no,
people weren't posting their own B stuff. It just
yeah,
never would have come up because, um, for my aesthetic, for my taste, it's very difficult to create really, really beautiful ICM photography. But when it
yeah,
happens, it can be quite stunning and quite beautiful.
yeah, yeah,
So again, it's the diversity of styles, the diversity of artistic expression, is in and of itself beautiful. And so what you may think is your B shot,
yeah,
maybe to my sense of personal taste and
yeah,
my personal aesthetic, maybe for me that would be an A shot. I'm like,
yeah.
why are you calling that a B? So
Yeah.
don't prejudge your own work and the reception people are
We
going to
do it
have
all
to it.
the time, though. We do
We
it
do
all
it
the
all the
time.
time.
We are our own worst critics. We are just talking offline about having imposter syndrome, and I think, you know, we're just our own worst critics. We just never think we're good enough, and I don't think that kind of like the imposter syndrome ever really goes away. I think it's always going to be there. Um, you just need to find ways to kind of push through it, right? Because I don't know why we get it, but we get it. Like I'm not sure what it is, but it's just part of the gig, just part of like what we signed up for.
I think it's societal. I think it starts very,
Yeah,
very young.
yeah,
In school, you try out for the team and you either
yeah,
make it or you don't.
right.
But no one necessarily taps you on the shoulder and says, hey, Wes, I saw you try out for the cross country running team. You
Yeah,
didn't really make it, but that doesn't mean you can't just run for the fun of it.
yeah,
You didn't
yeah.
make the football team. That doesn't mean you can't play flag football with your friends just for the fun of it.
Yeah. It's
So
interesting.
if
Mm,
some people have that person in their life who taps them on the shoulder and says, you can do things just for the enjoyment of doing them.
yeah, just for
You
the
don't
fun of
have to be Lance Armstrong to enjoy riding your bike.
it.
You
Mhm.
don't have to be Tony Hawk to enjoy riding a skateboard.
Yeah,
No one's going to tap you on the shoulder and say you don't need to be Annie Leibovitz to enjoy taking photos.
yeah,
But let me be that person. You don't have to be Annie Leibovitz to enjoy taking photos.
yeah,
You can
yeah,
just maybe no one else ever likes a single photo you take. If
yeah,
you take a photo that you like and you achieve what it is you intended to achieve with your camera that day, that's a beautiful photo. Take it, frame it, have it be the background on your phone, and just enjoy the hell out of the art you created, even if
yeah.
no one else gets it. You're
Yeah, I think, I mean, is that how you kinda deal with it? Just in terms of just having that kind of, like, mindset of, like, "This is just what I want to do?" Like, it
it, it's an intentionality
yeah,
practice of mine because I have the imposter syndrome. I have it
yeah,
very strong on some days. It's weak on others, but it is
yeah,
always there. So I have to take that deep breath and remind myself it's
yeah,
okay to be a hobbyist. It's okay to
yeah,
just do this because I enjoy doing it.
yeah,
For instance, I ride in the Enbridge Ride to Conquer Cancer every year. It was my 8th year.
yeah,
In fact, it was probably my last year. And
yeah.
so I took my camera with me and I took about 40 photos.
I saw some on your IG.
And when I got home and I put my memory card in,
Yeah.
my telephoto lens
Yeah.
had a very dark black hair in it.
Oh,
And
no.
30 of my photos have this very dark squiggly line down the middle of them. Not
Oh,
completely wasted. It's because I'm out riding my bike. I switched my lenses, didn't blow them out with my little air thing like I know I'm supposed to do. And sure enough, all my photos, well, not all of them, but the vast majority of them completely unusable. But
yeah,
you know what? Doesn't matter. Like I don't regret having taken those photos. I pulled my bike off the path. I stopped in some beautiful parks along the waterfront. I still enjoyed the process, even though the end result didn't turn out. And that's going to be true whether your thing is cooking. Not every batch of cookies turns out. Doesn't mean you don't deserve to bake.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Not
Sure.
every time you go for a ride through the country are you going to see a deer on the side of the road. Doesn't mean you can't enjoy the ride through the country.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it is, like I say, it's a practice that I have to. I'm better at it sometimes than others, but just take that deep breath and just say, I'm here to enjoy my hobby. And yeah,
Yeah.
it's great when it all works out. It's great when I have an end product that not only am I proud of, but I get that external validation because other people are like, "Wow, great photo." And
Yeah.
listen, it makes you feel like $1,000,000. I don't deny it. And sometimes when people look at your photo kind of funny and you can tell they're just being polite, it does
Yeah.
kind of hurt your feelings. I'm not gonna pretend it doesn't.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. We're
even in
all
those situations, I can say, yeah, but I still have the memory of being in that situation, taking that photo. Like I love tinkering around in Lightroom.
yeah.
I've got some new books from the library. I'm trying to learn more about Photoshop. I
Yeah.
just like the process of hunkering down with my computer and learning this technique, that technique.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah,
It's endless.
it's the
Endless. Like
process.
it never stops. Now you got AI coming, so it's
Mhm.
already here. So I mean,
And that's the thing. I mean, if all you want is technically perfect photos
yeah,
on your phone, on your computer, just wait 5 years and just tell AI what you want a picture of, and it'll
yeah,
create it for you.
yeah. I know
If it's
that's
just
a
the end
danger.
result you care about, sell your camera.
Yeah,
You got to enjoy the process. And one of the things
yeah,
I liked about that meetup is I was surrounded by people who were there to enjoy,
mhm,
who enjoy the process. At least the vast
yeah,
majority of them seem to. Um, and I've never really done any work with models. I mean, other than my kids who I make strike poses for me.
yeah,
And so, to meet people on that side of the industry who are, professionally the subject of photos and get their perspective and
right,
watch them enjoy the process or not enjoy the process. And,
yeah,
so I learned about my craft from the feedback that they were giving me
yeah,
in executing their craft. So yeah, it was a great side that I was happy to learn from and about. And I've signed up for more of the meetups. I don't know if you got notices of them.
yeah, yeah. I got 'em. Yeah, yeah. I'll be out to them. I think I think what you said about just it's okay just to have fun. I think sometimes we lose sight of it's okay just to have fun because I don't know. Sometimes we always feel like we're in like competition with other people just to do as good or do better. And I think sometimes it's okay just to have fun and like not worry about like the end result. I think sometimes we get lost in that a little bit. So I think
Oh
that's a
yeah,
good point that you made.
and it's fantastic to be inspired. I mean, listen,
Yeah,
doing a podcast, I'm sure you look at Joe Rogan's podcast numbers
yeah,
and you
yeah,
think, yeah, it would be great to have Joe Rogan's numbers or Mark Maron's numbers or
yeah. Of course,
name a
of
really
course. Yeah.
influential podcaster. But that doesn't mean you don't turn your camera on. Of course you
Well,
do.
yeah. Like to me, it's like you gotta want to do it. Like
Yeah,
you
and
gotta
listen,
want
there
to
there
do
are
it.
listeners out there, I guarantee, who will listen to this podcast who have absolutely no interest in listening to Joe Rogan's podcast or,
Yeah,
any of the other examples that I used.
yeah,
I've got who do I have on my podcast list? Conan O'Brien. I love his
sure.
Conan O'Brien Needs a Friend podcast.
Yeah,
Ologies by Ali Ward. I don't know if you know that
right.
one.
Yeah, yeah,
Fantastic.
yeah,
Um, but there are some that like the true crime podcasts that everybody
yeah,
seems to like.
yeah,
It's not my personal thing,
yeah,
but that doesn't mean that other people don't love them and other people don't enjoy producing them and making them. And so what? Wes Jackson's never going to listen to it. They're not at home losing any sleep over it. So why would I be at home losing any sleep over the fact that they're never going to look at my photos?
yeah. I know. Good
It's
point,
hard to
man.
hold that mirror up to realize that everyone's just doing the best that they can, and
Yeah,
so are you.
yeah,
And just because your paths will never cross, don't take that personally. It's so
yeah.
easy to take it personally, and it feeds into
So
the
easy.
imposter syndrome.
It's so
You just gotta
easy.
you just gotta remind yourself and just make it a soundtrack of your life that
Yeah,
I'm doing my thing the best I can, and so are you, and
yeah,
that's great. And
yeah.
just proceed
Yeah,
with it.
I think you just need to, like you said, do your best and just work with what you have at the same time. Because especially in photography, the gear never ends. I mean, there's always something to get, there's always something to buy, and I think we use it as an excuse not to do not to take the photo. And I think just take the photo with whatever you got, because it's in that kind of discipline is where you're gonna learn stuff, right? Instead of just kind of thinking I can't do it. I only
Oh,
got my phone. Well, just use your phone, right? Like it is what it is.
well, I mean, look, you can go to the library and get, the entire collection of Annie Leibovitz. I picked one up,
Yeah.
which is why she's top of mind as we're having this conversation.
Right.
She didn't have a mirrorless camera,
No,
and
didn't.
those photos hold up.
That's
Uh,
what I mean, right?
you know, uh, so many photos in history. They're just so beautiful, and you can just look up, the best photos from 2000, the best photos from 1990, the best photos from
Yeah.
1980. You're going to see beautiful, beautiful photos that weren't taken with half the technology
No.
that your entry level cameras today have.
Yeah.
And you just have to remember, it's not the camera,
It's the
it's the
person.
photographer and the story that they're going to tell.
Yeah.
Everyone has their own story, and everyone has a story to tell. And
Hmm.
whether it's my story, your story, when I'm trying to tell your story, my photographs will fail.
Yeah.
If I'm trying to copy you, if I'm trying to be the next whoever, I will probably stumble and fall and fail. And so, like I say, there's that distinction of what I said earlier, but it's great to feel inspired by people. It's great to learn from people. But at the end of the day, it's all about taking the things that you learn from them and asking yourself, how do I use that to be better at
Yeah.
telling my story
Yeah.
and expressing my vision? You know,
Yeah. Of course. Of course. Yeah. I mean, I think that's big. I mean, yeah. I mean, it's a great point. I mean, like, like? What is your story? What are you trying to do like with your photos? Are you trying to tell like a longer story? You're trying to tell like short stories? Like, is there a goal with your photos in the long run?
so I don't have a big story to tell in terms of what I'm doing. I try when I'm composing photos and editing them to find the story. And the story, I've decided in the long run that when it comes to photography, story is not the right word for my process.
Yeah. Okay.
What I'm trying to do with photos is bring out what it was that made me stop and want to take that photo.
Okay.
Right. So
Right.
whether it's the beauty of a flower, I mean, that's not a story as that term is usually used, at least by
Yeah.
me. I'm
Yeah.
not telling the story of flowers by any stretch of the imagination. But
Yeah.
one of the photos that's on my Instagram, you'll see it. It's a white flower, and there's a
Yeah.
little ant inside the flower, and he's crawling up the stamen of the flower. Okay, so it's not an intricate story, but the photo captures just this little ant crawling up the inside of a flower.
Yeah.
That just caught me because here's this little ant, like he's working. He's doing his thing. He's gathering food. You know, to express that as a story, it's kind of a lame story. Ant crawls up flower.
Right.
Okay,
Right.
but when I think of it as, what made me stop and take that photo, it was
Mm.
just the thought of this like little worker ant. There he is, completely oblivious to this 6'4" man with this,
Yeah.
expensive
Yeah.
piece of technology. I
Yeah.
don't exist for this little ant. I don't.
Yeah.
I'm just background noise to him. So
Yeah.
um, that's I tried to make sure the ant was in focus. The flower's a little bit out of focus. There's the contrast of the black and white, and
Right.
so that's what I was trying to bring out. So I focus on that versus the story. Um,
Interesting. I like that approach.
yeah,
Yep.
because it can be a lot. It can be a lot of pressure to say, what story am I trying to
Yeah.
tell? It's like trying
Yeah.
to say, well, I, I have to write a 600-word essay, versus just have you ever
Yeah.
seen this thing on the internet, the 6-word stories? A lot of them are horror
No, never
stories,
seen it.
or
Never
a lot
seen
of
it.
them are just okay. So there was a challenge: write a 6-word story. The saddest
Okay.
one ever is "baby shoes for sale, never worn."
Oh, wow.
6 words tells
Right.
a story, not a happy
Yeah.
story,
Yeah.
but it takes, and so there's a whole now genre on the internet of 6-word stories,
Yeah?
and some of them are really really interesting. And that's kind of like what photography is. A picture tells 1,000 words. Well, Stephen King's most famous books aren't 1,000 words long by any stretch of the imagination.
Oh,
He'd run out of book before he ran out of words. So,
yeah.
you have this very limited type of story that you can tell. Now, if you're covering news coverage, street photography is a great way to capture a story that's unfolding, or a
Right.
moment from the story. You think about the World War II photo, the sailor and the woman in the street, and they're
Yeah.
kissing, and a
Yeah.
photographer was there and captured that. That captures kind of like a moment in time, which sort of imports a story into the photograph.
Yeah.
You got to be at the right place at the right time for that kind of stuff,
Oh,
and
100%.
that it doesn't always just happen because you're out happening to be walking out with your camera. So you can put yourself in places. You can put yourself at bus stations, Union Station,
Yeah.
the distillery district at Christmas time, where
Right.
stories are happening all around you. You can be there to capture them. That's all fine and dandy. But like
Mhm.
I say, at the end of the day, I try to take that pressure off me of telling a story, and just try to bring out in the editing process, what was it that made me stop and take this photo? And that
Mm,
approach to me has been helpful.
that's
Now,
interesting.
when I go to things like meetups, I
Yeah.
am more. I have it in the back of my mind. Okay, uh, look for the stories that might be around me. And
Right.
and there's,
There's
there's a book
there's
you
more.
can get chapters. It's called the Storyteller's Workshop Approach to Photography,
Right.
and the different approaches you can bring when you're out shooting to try and find the story. But again, I try not to focus too much on that approach.
Yeah.
And I
I like that. I like that approach. I like that approach a lot, actually. It's quite good. I mean, it's very simple, which I like.
Yeah, and again, I just believe in the process over time that is going to lead to more photos, better photos. And so
Yeah.
far, I've definitely gotten better photos today versus 1 year ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
as you go back in time on my feed.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you mind if I share your feed at all? Maybe you can pick out a couple of photos that you like?
Uh, okay, so here's what I
I can
click to
share it here.
present.
I can share it here. I'll share it here on the screen here. You see it?
I don't know. Okay, so right there. Go back. Go back. Go to the picture of just my dog's eyes. He's down a couple rows. Right there. See him there? There's my dog, Sirius. So again, this photo doesn't tell a long story, but my dog has very soulful eyes, and he
Yeah.
likes to sit on the couch beside me and just
Wow.
stare at me while I rub his belly. And that's that look of, Dad, rub my belly.
Yeah.
So, I love that photo. Um, so scrolling down on my feed, about 2 or 3 rows below, you'll see a color photo. That's my other dog. He's the puppy. He's Skittles. So if you go to Starbucks, you can ask for a pup cup. They'll give you a little cup with whipped cream.
Oh, yeah?
Stuck his face right in there.
Yeah, of
Is
course,
this a
huh?
technically fantastic photo? No. Have I
No.
pulled the weed out from the bottom of my front door?
No.
No. Did I
But
put out a fresh mat? No. But I love this photo because when I
Yeah,
look at it,
yeah.
all I see is my puppy Skittles. Now, if you go to the very next photo, just right click over to the rows.
Oh, wow.
This to me, and this is what I love about black and white photography, the contrast, the faded
Yeah,
out background.
yeah.
That to me it was a harder technical photo to take, and I've had lots of people comment on this photo. But
I like it.
you know what it either is going to resonate with you or not, right?
Yeah, yeah.
This photo for me pertains to some very sad events in my life.
Mhm,
That's what it conjures up for me. That's what I was trying to bring out in the editing process. And to
mhm.
me, I rank this photo as one of my most successful photos because I achieved exactly what I was intending to achieve when I
Right.
took it, when I edited it, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
All right, so
Interesting,
where's the
interesting.
rest of my feed here? So the very next photo was one of the models at the meetup, and
Yeah,
this was a
yeah.
photo that she basically asked me to take. The pose was
Okay.
her idea, everything about it. And again, I think I achieved very, very much what we were after. Um,
Yeah.
and it kind of tells a story. Again, it's her story. She's the one who composed it and modeled for it. And you sort of,
Cool.
but analyzing it from a story perspective for me doesn't resonate so much as I was trying to capture the colors. I was trying to capture
Yeah,
that
the
sort of
green was in the
flirtatious
dress.
look in her eyes, the
Yeah.
dress,
Yeah.
the sort of, you kind of pick up a vibe from it. So,
Mm.
um, again, my approach of bringing out what it is I was hoping for, uh, sort of better. So if you scan forward about, I don't know, 12 or 15 photos, you're going to get to one of the sketches I was talking about.
I like this one a lot, by the way.
Oh, him. Yeah.
I like this one a lot.
He's,
This is
uh,
cool.
I attach the word natural. I have no idea how long he's been modeling.
Yeah.
But I basically explained, I have this vision in my mind. He's like, this? I was like, click. There was no
This?
follow-up direction. Like he just, I don't know if he was reading my mind or if he kind of
Yeah.
had the same thing in mind when he walked into that room.
Yeah.
Um, Now in Lightroom, the colors do
Yeah.
pop a little bit more. There was some compression issues when I put it on Instagram. That's one of the
Right.
things I'm still learning is how to render things out on the export side so that I don't lose kind of any of the color or the brightness. But I'm
Yeah.
even still I'm happy with how it turned out, even as
Yeah, I
rendered.
like it a lot. I like it a lot.
So where are we here on the
Yes,
feed?
I should scroll through this set. I like the one too, actually.
Now I want to tell you a quick story about this photo
Yeah.
because I had proposed something. Let's just call it sacrilegious.
Yeah.
Because I really, really liked the contrast of the LGB community
Right.
who are represented by this designer, with this picture of a very religious woman literally clutching her pearls, and it
Uh,
was suggested to me that fantastic idea, and I think I
Yeah.
might go back on a private basis
Okay.
and take the photo that I had sort of outlined, but in connection with this meetup and with the event, it was kind of, you know, keep politics out of it, which, yeah,
Yeah.
fair enough. You do have to be respectful of the space and the people that you're working with. But just, and again, one of the things I like about black and white is contrast, the idea of a little bit of scandal contrasted with a very
Yeah.
iconographic religious image.
Yeah.
To
Yeah.
me, I was just dying to take that photo. So I might go back, like you say, not in a
Yeah.
meetup venue and look at that.
Yeah,
Um,
man. It's
so where are we in
interesting.
the feed? So 4, 5,
Um,
another 10 photos or so,
10.
give or take.
I like this one a lot too. The clocks. Oh my god.
Yeah,
I like that.
yeah. That room is just fantastic
Great, eh?
for
I think it
black
was the
and white
best room.
photography.
I think it was the best room, man. There he is again.
Yeah, yeah. Now this dress was a very, very colorful dress. And the model, when I took that photo and showed it to her, she was like, I never thought about taking
Black
black and
and white.
white photos in this dress because it's a very
Yeah.
colorful floral dress.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But to me, it just, it brings out her tattoos, brings out her personality.
Yeah.
Um, I think it enhanced her personality versus sort of
Yeah.
squashing
Yeah.
it under the lack of color.
She even
So where
said
are we?
B&W turned out to be a nice surprise. Love this. Yeah, it's good. I like it too. Quite nice.
So you got, yeah, I think 5 more and you'll get to the sketch I made.
Okay.
There you go, right there.
Yeah.
So this sketch ironically took me about 40 minutes.
Yeah?
Don't ask me why,
Okay.
but it did. But it's very impressionist. It's very minimal, and it is far from perfect. And I don't profess to have any sketching ability,
Yeah.
but there's just something about it that I like. Now, someone else is going to say, "Yeah, I don't get it. I don't even understand what you're trying to do."
Yeah.
Oh well, you know what?
Uh,
A year from now, when I'm better at the Apple Pencil and better at the Sketch program, maybe I'll look back at it and say, "What was I thinking?" But for now, I'm quite happy with it. It brings me joy, even if no one else.
That's all that
Now, the
matters.
next two photos are Toronto sunrises,
Nice.
and
Where
these
was
are
this taken?
captured from the top of Chinguacousy Hill in Brampton
Yeah.
using a 300 millimeter zoom lens.
Okay.
And this is, other than the vignetting, it's all done in camera.
Mm.
Um, and if you go,
Was that bird on purpose or by accident?
well, I mean, there were just birds in the sky generally. Um, so one more photo. So this photo, you're,
This one here.
yeah,
Sunset.
sunrise. That was
Sunrise.
taken, I think, at 5:30 in the morning, just
Okay.
outside Peel Memorial Hospital.
Okay.
And you'd be surprised the number of people who are smoking on bridges above railway
Oh,
lines at 5:30 in the morning.
yeah,
I
right?
couldn't believe it. Oh, I couldn't believe it.
Really?
There's like 5 other
Why?
guys up there. They're all just up there smoking.
Yeah.
I don't know why they met there. I don't think they liked that I was there with a camera. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. Okay.
Anyway,
Okay. All right. Okay.
so yeah, so
That's cool.
from there, um, you'll get into some stuff. Where are we here? 1, 2, 3. So two more photos. You'll see a realtor friend of mine by the name of Parth. This staircase is in the old shoe factory by the Brampton GO station. And I want to go there with some professional models.
Yeah.
Because it's a fantastic staircase. That whole building is just fantastic.
Cool.
But Parth just happened to be there. And I was like, do you mind if I just take your photo real quick? So I'm using this photo to show to the people that I want to come and model there.
Right.
To say, like, this is kind of what I have in mind. You'll stand a little bit differently. You'll be dressed a little bit differently.
Yeah.
But are you willing to come out and do some trade for print work with me?
Yeah, interesting. It looks like a
Yeah.
cool place.
Yeah, it is. It's really really nice inside. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 photos from there. You're going to see an example of what I was talking about earlier. Just out walking with my iPhone, walking my dogs.
This one?
As I walk towards a street light, just have my phone in front of me, selfie
Ah,
view, and as I walk in the light, just trying to capture some cool shadows on my face.
yeah,
You
that's
know,
cool. That's cool.
um, yeah, uh,
Yeah, it's neat.
yeah,
I dig it. It's a
uh,
neat raincoat selfie. I dig it.
yeah. Why not? Right? It's
Right?
like I say, if I'm not, like I say, I'm not blowing it up to put it on the side of a building. I'm not selling books of
Yeah.
black and white photography, and that's going to be one of the photos. But as a hobby, and I love that this is from an online seller. I was going to order that for Pride Month, and I actually just frankly forgot.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I got to go back and order that. Um,
Free dad
so
hugs. Gotta love
free
it.
dad hugs.
This is cool. I like
Yeah,
this.
I was waiting in line to get into a TFC game, and the clouds were just
Oh
going by
yeah.
the CN Tower in a cool way. Kind of reminded me, give me Empire Strikes Back vibe
Yeah.
when they're going to
Yeah.
Cloud
Yeah.
City.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so that's just all done on a phone. You know,
That's cool,
uh,
man. I like
yeah,
it. I dig it. Even stuff like this, the details, right? Yeah.
yeah. So that was ironically when the cherry blossoms were blooming
Okay.
in the park just south of downtown Brampton. That's not a cherry blossom, obviously. That's the photo I took. And you'll see the next photos of cherry blossom. But yeah, just I how do I say this? So yeah, aiming the camera directly into the sun is always a challenge. But
Yes.
that's how I got that shot. Was I intentionally framed the sun behind? I think it's a
Okay.
weed. I don't know if it's ragweed, whatever the hell it is.
Alright.
But yeah, uh,
That's cool, man. Yeah.
yeah, just walking around Toronto,
Yeah.
and I was trying to remember where Speaker's Corner was.
It was right there.
It was right there, and
It
I
was
looked
right
up,
there.
and I was like, that truck is still there since
It's
I was a
still it's
high
still
school kid.
it's still there, man.
Yeah.
It's I don't know. Is it like I don't know. I thought I saw Speaker's Corner back, but it's more like online now. It's not an actual phone booth.
Yeah, I don't know.
But isn't that what Twitter is? Like a big speaker's corner? Like
Yeah, pretty
Royce
much.
is
Yeah, pretty
Royce,
much.
are familiar with the ViewBug? I'm familiar with the ViewBug website. Yeah, Roy. Are you familiar with the ViewBug website,
No,
Wes?
what's ViewBug?
I'll show you ViewBug. You can submit
Oh,
photos.
photo contest. Yeah, I got it up here. I'll
Yeah,
check that
stuff
out
like
later. Yeah.
that. Yeah. Having the model hug the frame. I don't know what that means. Probably when you're going through your stuff. So what's
Yeah.
like?
So
Go ahead.
just to respond to what he's saying, or one of the comments he made, there's a bit of a debate between monochrome sensors versus, you've got Photoshop. Why not just convert to black and
Yeah,
white?
yeah,
Um, I listen. I recognize the validity of both. And I'm not trying to give a political answer, um, but the reason I doubled down and bought a monochrome sensor camera is, the tones are just so beautiful,
yeah.
and the camera that I bought is very analog. So
Right.
your shutter speed is an analog dial. Your f-stop is an analog dial. Everything, even your ISO setting, when you get used to the sequence of buttons you have to press, becomes very, very analog. And so
Yeah.
I can manipulate all three sides of the exposure triangle in camera versus, either my Olympus or my camera. You gotta put your camera down, pull up the menu, get to your ISO settings, or you got to press this button to get to your ISO settings, what have you. Um,
Mhm.
it's for me, it takes longer. And I'm sure, and I was having this conversation earlier, I'm sure if I walked around with nothing but one particular camera for 6 months, I'd get so good at it, it would become second nature.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it's not my job. No one's paying me to walk around and do that. So for me, it's not going to happen in the
No.
near future.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I do. I will use Lightroom to convert to black and white if I think.
Yeah.
Um, and listen, so, like I say, sometimes you've taken a photo, looks great on the screen, you get it back, you throw it into Lightroom, and when it's actually up on your big 20-inch monitor,
Yeah.
the flaws start to come out,
Of
right?
course. Of
And
course.
sometimes, honestly, you can fix them by converting to black and white. You just basically erase what those flaws are. Some of the colors that don't pop
Yeah.
the way they meant to,
Yeah.
or things, clashing colors. You weren't paying enough attention to the background, and a background color is kind of throwing the whole image off. Yeah, you convert to black and white, it just disappears.
Yeah. It's gone.
Yeah. There's a huge challenge in shooting people in black and white,
Yeah.
in that you really got to know your lighting,
Yeah.
because you can just lose entire people if you don't have the scene lit correctly. And I'm still learning. I got some books on the subject.
Okay.
A new trick that I've learned from a book that I haven't practiced with yet is getting a light behind your model shining backwards on the wall,
Okay.
and it's gonna throw the glow up and is gonna create a natural vignette. So
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to testing
Yeah.
that out with my
Yeah.
next. But again, it's not we spoke earlier about, to become a better photographer, take 1,000 photos. There are shortcuts. You can learn, you can read. There are books at the library. You can download guides. You can watch tutorials on YouTube.
Yeah.
Just going through websites. Again, I'll check out ViewBug, but there's 500px. There's Guru, which is like, a
Yeah.
photo contest site.
Yeah.
You can just browse iStock photos. Whatever it is, just while you're doing it, try and figure out. It becomes a little game. Try and figure out, how did the photographer do that? How do they create that shadow? How do they create that effect?
Without
And
reading about it.
without reading about it. And
Think about it. Yeah.
yeah,
Critically.
every time I read an article, I then go back and I'll just spend 10 minutes just browsing Instagram,
Yeah.
going, I wonder if what I just read is showing up in what I'm seeing.
Yeah.
And one of the things, trying to remember exactly how the author described it. So it was, anyway, using your iPhone with the panographic setting, right? Like, you
Right.
scan half, then you actually just like stop and like models move and do this and do that and then change lighting and then keep going. And I was just like, yeah, I never would have thought of that. But you see these cool pictures of people playing chess with themselves.
Right.
And I always just look at those photos and go, oh, there's twins. But
No.
now I watch this tutorial on how to
No.
do it. I'm like, I'm an idiot. It's not twins.
Mhm. Mhm.
You know, they know this trick that I never learned until just
Yeah,
now. So
that's
yeah,
cool.
so
Cool.
there's a couple good accounts on Instagram that are just dedicated to photography tricks and
Yeah. Which
tricks of the
ones?
trade. And
Which ones you know
uh,
offhand?
I'll never remember it when you put me on the spot. I might send it to you
Sure.
in Messenger, or I'll tag
Alright.
you in one of those photos. One of the cool
Yeah,
things he did was really, really cool. They took a round mirror out to a field,
yeah.
and then they had the model kind of like this at the edge of the mirror, and then they poured a bottle of water onto the mirror so it looks like a reflecting pool.
Ah, that's cool.
Right? I was just like, that is
That's
so
cool.
cool. And so
That's cool.
now when I'm at thrift stores or Talese or uh, whatever, I look for just like cheap mirrors that are a size that I could carry with me out to the field. Because I'm like, one of
Yeah,
these
you
days
don't
I'm going to be out there with someone and I'll have a mirror in my car. Why not? Right?
yeah,
Yeah,
like, you don't need fancy stuff to make cool shots, like, it'd be so simple sometimes, like,
exactly. And
so
just
simple, so simple.
yeah, find a reflecting pool. Yeah, good luck. But if you have a bottle of water in a mirror, now you can just make your own. That's like
Yeah,
that's so
that's
cool.
that's it. Sometimes it's
So
sometimes
cool.
it's the simplest things that make the photo really pop, and I don't think, you don't need to spend all kinds of money on fancy gear and lighting and props. Sometimes you just need to go to, like, Salvation Army or Value Village or, like, the dollar store and just, like, pick up something cool that could really kinda, like, make your photo kinda next level, and just think creatively too, right? Like, think really creative too about it.
Yeah, and I say
Just
I've seen some very cool photos, very cool shots on Instagram. Just
Yeah,
you'll see a model, you'll see them from the back, but they're in there'll be like 6 or 8 different mirrors of different sizes.
right,
So just capturing different parts of the room, different parts of the model's
right,
body that you don't see in the photo.
yeah,
It just like creates really, really cool effects. And what's a used mirror cost? Not a lot. You go to IKEA, you pick up some cheap mirrors, and you can build
yeah,
yourself a little set like that. Now, again, I'm not
right,
doing this professionally, so I really I slap myself on the wrist. I try not to go and spend money I don't need to spend.
yeah,
Um, but you just look for opportunities. Like I say, that where that meetup was, Vision Room.
yeah, yeah,
Stuff like that. Just ways to push yourself. Um, just,
yeah,
yeah, just keep your mind open to it, and just like I say, if you're focused on the process, there's so many opportunities out there to take new and interesting shots, learn new and interesting techniques. Maybe you try them once or twice. Maybe they're your thing. Maybe they're not. Like I say,
yeah,
I spent about a month on intentional camera movement. I
yeah,
think I got one shot that I will look back on in future years, with a modicum of pride. The rest are just kind of, they're there.
right, right,
Um, but I learned an appreciation for it. Whether I spend a lot of time doing it or not, who knows? Doubt it, but you never know. I
yeah,
still learned it, and it was. Hey, listen, I have more expensive hobbies. I can spend $50 going to the movies and watch a movie. I get 2 hours of entertainment about it. I
yeah,
watch a YouTube video on intentional camera movement. I got a month of entertainment out of it.
yeah,
So,
yeah,
yeah, you can spend a lot of money. You can spend very, very little money. I always like to analyze things as how many hours of entertainment did I get out of that dollar?
right, right,
And my camera has brought me, like I say, hundreds and hundreds of hours of entertainment. So
yeah.
don't
Time
tell
well
my
spent.
financial yeah, don't tell my financial planner what I spent on it, but
Don't tell, don't tell. No, that's hush hush. But yeah, I think you definitely got to be open to everything and not be so closeted. And then, because I think sometimes we get stuck in our own way sometimes, and we just kind of like do our thing because that's the way we've always done it. But I think it's really important just to be open to like different ways of doing things because that's when I think the magic can really happen because suddenly you're doing something you never done before and you never know what's going to happen when you do that. So I'm glad you brought that up in terms of just being open to stuff. I think it's super super important. I mean it's easier said than done too, right? Because we're all people and we all kind of like have our comfort zones, but being open is key, I think. Meeting format triumphs. Oh, did we lose Wes again? Hope he comes back. Yes, right. Follow your instincts, not your trends. Exactly. I think Wes will come back in about 2 minutes, so we'll follow this commercial break or something like that. Yes, Roy. 120 centimeter black and white film. Absolutely. We should get Kent here to sponsor this show one day. How about that? Wes will be back in 2 minutes. Roy, you want to come on and talk about something real quick? Let me know. We'll bring you on. Oh, Wes is back. Wes, you're on a
Well,
roll.
I do apologize. I don't know what's going on with my
Wes, you're on a
internet today.
roll. Yeah, I don't know what's going on with the internet today.
Yeah, just kind of like, I mean, we don't have a power out. It's not raining anymore. But anyway, I
No,
apologize for that.
no. Hey, man. Hey, to me, it's not alive until something goes wrong. That's just the way it goes. That's just the way it goes every show. Something happens. Something has to happen. Otherwise, it's not really a live show.
Well, I'm in good company. Julia Louis-Dreyfus was interviewing Jane Fonda and lost her internet. So,
Yeah, it happens to the best of the best, you know.
yeah.
No, I was just saying how it's important just to like be open and to, because we have a comfort zone and we do things a certain way for a period of time, and it's not easy to change sometimes. But if you're able to change and be open to different ways of doing things, you never know what's going to happen, right?
Oh, I agree 100%.
It's
No one, no one regrets what's that expression? You don't regret the things you failed at, you regret the things you didn't try, something like that. So yeah, you just got to keep growing and trying. And maybe your path is you decide that it's not the hobby for you after all. Oh, well, you learn something.
yeah,
Cameras
yeah,
generally retain their value unless you drop them. So, I encourage anyone who has any interest at all in it,
yeah,
borrow a camera if you have to, spend some
right,
time, don't give up right away.
yeah.
Just because no one publishes your first ever photo, that's fine. you
What?
know, um, just,
What?
just remember you're out there trying to express yourself, same way as if you're drawing, doodling. Um, I've never read anyone who says, I refuse to doodle on the side of my notebook because I'm not Picasso. No one says
Yeah,
that.
no one
So
says that.
when people say, I'm not a photographer because I'm not the best photographer ever.
Yeah,
If you enjoy taking photos of things, you're a photographer, and
yeah,
just enjoy it from that perspective, and
yeah,
allow it to be a hobby. Don't hold yourself to that kind of, you know, ultra professional standard, and
yeah,
you'll be fine.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And you
And
may
like you
and you
said
may
at
just
the go ahead, sorry.
oh, I just say you may surprise yourself with some of the things that you capture. So, um, if you ever, again, this is a Brampton reference, but if you take the Etobicoke Creek Trail south of Steeles, you go underneath Highway 410, and then after that you go underneath Highway 407 on your way into Mississauga.
Right.
And there's under one of the bridges there's an encampment of houseless people. Okay,
Mhm.
and there's graffiti everywhere, and some of the graffiti is really really cool. It's well done, and I'm not trying to encourage people to just go make a spectacle of it, but
Uh-huh.
um, if I had never ridden my bike that way, because like I say, I grew up in Heart Lake, so
Right.
my instinct is to ride my bike north on the Etobicoke Creek Trail up to Mayfield and
Right.
back. If I had
Right.
never gone south, I never would have seen it. You know,
Mhm.
and then that
Mhm.
trail
Mhm.
goes south by the airport, and there's a really cool spot where the path meets the 401. And if
Mhm.
you're ever on the 401 driving towards the 410, you see it right on the right hand side where the planes come in,
Yeah,
right at
yeah.
the base of the runway. And this particular day I was cycling by, there's like 30 people just standing there, and the planes are landing like literally above your head.
Crazy.
And I wasn't going to sit there with my camera, but I did stop and just sat and just watched a couple planes land, because it's cool to watch the wheels come down and as it hits the ground, and you can see it all
Yeah.
there. And again, I mean, it sounds so simple, but just being open to taking a different route on my bike
Right.
led to these just cool new experiences.
Yeah.
And just
Yeah.
having a camera is as good a reason as any to go for a hike. And if you come back with
100%.
no photos, you had a good hike.
You had a good hike.
Yeah.
I love it. Yeah, sometimes it's the simple things that really kind of have the biggest impact, you know? I mean, and they don't happen right away either. Sometimes, like, you're gonna realize the impact later on. It's like, "Oh, I'm glad I did that because now it led me to this. If I didn't do that, I wouldn't be here," and it could be, like, 6 months later. But it could be just a
Yep.
simple thing about going to a meetup, and all of a sudden you met different people, and now you're doing different things, and a year later, you got a whole different thing going on, so
Yeah, which all
crazy.
stemmed from a
It's
guy
crazy.
sort of met online, guy by the name of Mike, saying, "You
Yeah,
should meet my
that's what
friend
I mean.
Brian."
That's
And I
like
had the
that's
conversation with
exactly
Mike
it.
and he said, "I'm taking my dog to the dog park. You have dogs. Want to
Yeah,
meet in person?" Yeah.
yeah,
All right. You know. So
yeah,
Mike's a great guy. Gotten to know him over the
yeah,
last couple of years. Who introduced me to, who introduced me to, who introduced me
yeah,
to, brings me here. I'm talking to you today.
yeah,
It's all fantastic.
exactly.
Yeah.
It's really quite great. We're up against the hour, Wes, so I don't want to take up too much of your time. So thanks again for doing this. I'd like to do it again sometime too. I think we just scratched the surface.
Yeah, absolutely. Always a pleasure. Thank you
Yeah,
so much. And yeah, keep me in mind if you ever want to
absolutely.
have another
Ab-
chat. I will look into what's going on with my internet before our
Yeah, no
next meeting.
worries, no worries, no worries. People watching, listening, YouTube, Spotify, wherever this thing is, go check out Wes. His handles in the description. And like what Wes said in like the meetup in the vlog, just I asked him how did you approach his shots in the meetup? It's like with curiosity and gratitude. And I think that answer was like phenomenal, to be honest with you. So I think it's just a great way to live life in general, just to be curious and just to be grateful. It's not even about photography; it's just about like living life. I think it's a great way to be. I think.
Yeah, what I find it's a great way to approach people
Yeah,
because again, whether it comes naturally to you or whether it's an intentional practice, just remind yourself, don't
yeah,
judge that book by its cover.
yeah,
Be
yeah.
curious about them. And I don't know if you're a big Ted Lasso fan that just wrapped, the first
Right,
season thing with people
right.
got to be curious. I know how to play darts. If you were
Yeah,
curious, you would have known.
yeah,
And so watching that just, it's one of the things that help bring it back into intentional practice. So yeah,
yeah, yeah.
you know,
It's great. Love it.
you were curious with me. That's how we got to talk that day and that's how we got
Yeah,
to talk today. And
yeah. I
I'm
love it.
grateful for that. So thank you so
Love it.
much.
I love the whole thing about it. Thanks again, Wes, and hopefully we'll do it again soon.
Thank you so much.
All right, thanks everyone for watching and listening. We'll see you next time with another special guest. Have a great evening.
Good night.